Shavua Tov, everybody. Welcome to a new week and welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land and hosted by me, Rolene Marks, from my studio/office/bomb shelter right here in central Israel in Modi'in. And as always, the Israel Brief is brought to you by Lay of the Land. So let's take a look at the latest stories. We are in day 70 of Israel's war with Hamas. And we begin with news that yesterday the IDF exposed to the global media the biggest terror tunnel underneath the ground in Gaza. Now, we've been speaking for weeks now, or actually months, about the subterranean metro under the ground in Gaza that Hamas use as shelters to transport goods, to store weapons, and of course not to shelter or look after civilians. And those tunnels have been built with the billions that the Gaza Strip has received in aid from countries around the world. In fact, what has been quite extraordinary is as we are seeing more and more footage made public as the IDF go through the Gaza Strip, we are seeing so much United Nations and their various agencies brandings in hospitals, in tunnels and everywhere else, which begs the question, UNRWA, the United Nations, how much did you know? Last week, the United Nations tweeting out that they're very concerned about the use of seawater to flood the tunnels, a practice that Egypt engages in. Many of us are of the opinion that they're just upset because it hurts their investment. But back to that major tunnel. This tunnel is called the Sinwar Project and is massive, some 400 meters away from the Erez Crossing. Now, the Erez Crossing, which looked rather before the 7th of October like a beautiful train station, was an access point where Palestinian workers would cross into Israel to earn salaries to take back into Gaza and regenerate the economy. In Israel, they stood a chance of earning 6 times the salary that they would earn in the Gaza Strip. Now, on the 7th of October, Hamas terrorists decimated the Erez Crossing, and yesterday's discovery of this massive, some 2.5 kilometer long tunnel, 4 meters wide. In fact, there was video footage taken from Hamas's archives by our intelligence agency, which shows how this tunnel was built, but also showed Mohammed Sinwar. He is the brother of Israel's most hunted man, Yahya Sinwar, driving his luxury, of course, vehicle through the tunnel. And the chief spokesperson of the IDF spokesperson unit, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, took the global media inside, and it has garnered a lot of coverage. What is interesting on the amount of people saying, is this where all the UN money and all the aid money has gone? Now, could you imagine if those billions in aid were spent on creating a better life for the civilians inside the Gaza Strip, building infrastructure, creating jobs? But we know that that is not what Hamas want. Hamas want as many civilians suffering or as many civilian casualties as humanly possible, because they know that that gets the world's attention and sympathy. And of course, we still don't have definite numbers of civilians who have been killed in the fighting, because there is no differentiation between civilians and combatants by the Palestinian health authorities, which of course are run by Hamas. Now, yesterday, the Shalom Crossing, this is from the south of Israel into the Gaza Strip, opened for the first time. It has been used in the past couple of weeks to inspect goods before they cross through the Rafah crossing, which is on Egypt's side, into southern Gaza. This time, because Israel wants to allow in more humanitarian aid, these trucks went through the Shalom Crossing. Now, there is footage of trucks going in from either of the crossings being taken by Palestinian gunmen, keeping away civilians who desperately need that aid. And Israel has expressed our dismay to the UN and various aid organizations that they are not doing a good enough job in ensuring that humanitarian aid gets to the people that need it the most. Now, this weekend was a very, very emotionally difficult one for Israel with regards to hostages. There are now 129 hostages inside the Gaza Strip that we want back immediately. Israel's chief of the Mossad, David Barnea, is currently in Warsaw meeting with the Qatari Prime Minister to renegotiate a deal that would see the release of some of the hostages. But for us in Israel, we don't want some of the hostages, we want all of the hostages. It was also confirmed over the weekend that in Mar Haman, a young woman who was taken hostage had been murdered by Hamas in captivity. But there was also a very, very difficult and tragic incident that happened. Over the weekend, news broke that 3 hostages, either abandoned by Hamas or who managed to escape in the area of Shejair, which has seen very, very intense combat, managed to escape and were shot dead by IDF forces. The IDF has claimed responsibility, and as you can imagine, they are devastated. We are all devastated at what happened. And of course, we think of the hostages, their families, and in fact of the soldiers who were responsible for this. I can't imagine how anybody is feeling right now. But what we do know is that the hostages managed to escape. They came out carrying a white flag, not wearing shirts so they could be identified as not having a suicide belt on. However, I don't think it's for any of us to judge the situation. This is a horrific, horrific tragedy which has torn our hearts out. But we also know that these are young, exhausted soldiers who maybe did not think properly, did not obey protocols properly, protocols which will be, of course, reviewed as the IDF review it. And it also took place in Shejair, where troops were ambushed, and just days before that, recordings of Hebrew and babies crying was played to try and lure Israeli troops into some kind of ambush. So I want to be very clear, I'm not justifying anything, but I'm trying to understand, as we all are, how something like this could happen. And contrary to media reports, and this goes for the Associated Press and Sky News and others, Israel does not deliberately target unarmed civilians. Let's make that very, very clear. Israel does not deliberately target unarmed civilians. What happened was a horrific and tragic mistake, and one that you can be sure never happens again. Footage was also released yesterday of the Tanzanian national Joshua Molel, who was in Israel along with another Tanzanian national. They were on an exchange, an agricultural exchange, here to learn vital skills to take back to Tanzania and hopefully start businesses. Well, footage has emerged of Hamas taking Joshua Molel, beating him, murdering him, shooting him in the head. They still have his body in Gaza. Now, Joshua was Tanzanian, and I would appeal to anybody who is in South Africa or anybody who is from Africa to make it known, to raise your voices how painful and how hurt we all are that Joshua, whose only crime was to be in Israel at the moment that this terror event took place, and was murdered so brutally. Naturally, we haven't heard from organizations like Black Lives Matter. Don't know if you can hear this, but we do have alerts for incoming rockets somewhere in the country. The United Nations are set to vote again. This is the Security Council set to vote again on the proposed resolution for ceasefire. This time, the language of the ceasefire calls for the immediate release of hostages, but does not blame Hamas. We expect that the United States is likely to veto this. And this is around central Israel. I can hear the booms. So let it be known, you're watching this as it is recorded. Rockets are still being fired towards central Israel. back to the United Nations. I just want to get on my soapbox for a minute, because we've seen footage emerging from the Sudan where massacres have taken place and there are millions of displaced people. In Syria, in the city of Jassim, 50,000 Syrians, including children, are under siege. No food is getting in and people are unable to get out. And the Syrians, along with their Iranian allies, are shelling the area. I wonder how many civilians have been killed there. And I just want to know, where is the United Nations? Where is UNICEF? Where is UN Women? Where are the resolutions and where are the protests in the capitals of cities or countries around the world? The foreign ministers of Germany and the United Kingdom have penned a joint op-ed in the Sunday Times. They have called for a sustainable ceasefire. Now, they've said in this article that they want a ceasefire that is sustainable for generations to come. They acknowledge Israel's right to defend herself and put the blame squarely at the foot of Hamas. Now, what the mainstream media is not telling you is that they have been very, very clear in that op-ed. In fact, they have said, let us be very clear. We don't believe that a ceasefire is right for right now. We don't believe that a ceasefire should happen right now, but we do believe that in the future there should be a sustainable ceasefire. I think this is very, very important to bring up, because we are seeing some selective reporting out there, which is of course why you come to the Israel brief, because you get the facts and the full picture. And finally, because facts and truth matters, the Latin Patriarchate over the weekend said that Israeli troops, a sniper, had fired on a Catholic church in the Gaza Strip, killing a mother and her daughter. This resulted in the Pope calling the IDF terrorists. Now, the IDF have categorically denied that this took place. They said they operate with specific sensitivity when it comes to holy sites, especially Christian holy sites, and said there is absolutely no indication that this event took place or that there were even injuries or casualties. So truth matters. Let's be very, very careful. Let's make sure that we get all the facts before we just believe people who are pushing forward a specific narrative, because we are engaged not just in a war on the physical battlefield, but in the war of the narratives and the media and of course public opinion. So that brings me to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. Don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. Hit that red subscribe button. Our Facebook page at LOTLSITE at Lottel Site. Our X page at Lay of the Land 5. And as I always like to say, guys, take care of yourselves and each other. I'll catch you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.